Go sit next to the trash bag. That's where someone like you belongs." My father, Richard Hale, jerked his chin and tossed my name card straight into the pile of garbage without a second of hesitation. Funny, isn't it? The same freeloader he was talking about had just spent the last of her money so my younger sister could be the shining star of the night, glowing in front of hundreds of guests. In that luxurious wedding hall, I stood quietly in a jet black silk dress, a mourning outfit for my own stupid devotion. Turns out, in this family, the one carrying the entire weight of everything was the only person who didn't even have a proper seat. And that's the story of Naomi Hale. And I'm Stella. Families often teach us how to be understanding long before they teach us how to love ourselves. Naomi stood in that hallway for 10 years waiting for a seat. But today she stood there to close a door. Before I tell you what Naomi did after those words, tell me where you're listening from. And if you've ever been the one who paid for everything but was still treated like trash in your own family, stay until the end. Because the truth about that seat next to the trash bag is only the beginning. About an hour before the ceremony, I was still stupid enough to believe I would at least be seated like family. But the polished seating chart had absolutely no place for Naomi. A staff member, looking embarrassed, led me into a side hallway and pointed to a flimsy folding table. The card that read, "Naomi Hale," lay there alone, right beside a trash bag tied with a red string that was starting to smell. I had barely opened my mouth when my father cut me off with that sentence. My mother yanked my arm down hard, gripping it like she was afraid I might cause a scene, and whispered, "Be quiet. People are watching." My phone buzzed. I opened an email from the wedding planner and saw my name still listed as the primary payment contact. Below it was a short note. If the final confirmation wasn't approved, the upgraded sound system, the bar service, and the additional decorations would be suspended before the ceremony. Just seeing my name still there sent a chill down the back of my neck. I had not approved any additional charges for today. The cold glow of the phone screen lit my hand. Next to me was the name card lying beside the trash bag. Out there, the ceremony doors were beginning to open. I stood frozen in the hallway with my seat taken away, while my name was chained to a pile of unpaid bills. A cold truth ran straight down my spine, waking me up after 10 years of blind devotion. I couldn't pretend to sleep through it anymore. My father didn't just want to humiliate me in front of the guests. He wanted to keep my name on the bill for that day because he believed I would grit my teeth and pay before I would dare ruin my sister's wedding. My hand still held the phone, but my mind was already drifting back to the years before. No one becomes a family's debt mule overnight. It starts with 2 words: be understanding, whenever the house runs short on money. After my father's project collapsed, casual compliments like, "Naomi is so responsible," slowly turned into an invisible noose. Whenever there was a gap, they expected me to step in and fill it. The first 2 times, my father paid me back properly. I fell into the trap of believing everything was only temporary. When I was 23, I brought home a brochure for the apartment I had always dreamed of. That was the same day my mother suddenly complained about her knee. My father didn't say a word. He simply folded the brochure and shoved it into a drawer like it was a piece of trash. I stood there staring as my dream was quietly executed. 1 moment of silence, and 10 years of youth paid the price. The bitterest memory was the scholarship envelope. My father said he needed to borrow it for a while. I was the one who pushed it across the table to him. The sound of the paper sliding over the wood was dry and hollow. Some lives changed direction because of a sound that small. Outside, guests were beginning to fill the seats. I looked down at the name card beside the trash bag, then back at the attachment glowing on my screen. This wasn't the first time they had pushed me aside. It was simply the first time my place had been exposed so openly, so disgustingly. It was so ugly that no polite words could hide it anymore. The title of family member suddenly felt weightless, while the pile of debt in my name felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I lifted my head and looked at the frosted glass near the kitchen door. My reflection there looked thin and slightly crooked, cut off from the bright light of the ceremony hall. If I kept living like this, they would keep piling everything onto my shoulders for the rest of my life. Out there, my sister's wedding continued as if this family had never been held up by my blood and bones. The chatter of guests grew louder, and my mind drifted back to a night 3 months earlier. My father spread the wedding budget across the table and announced it without asking for my opinion. The groom's family has high standards. Lila can't look cheap. He talked about family honor, but the person paying was me. From the very beginning, saying no meant being selfish. It started with a few advance payments to make things easier. The hall deposit, the flowers, the band. Because I was an accountant, because I had a card, everything naturally shifted onto me. No one said, "You have to pay." They just said, "Put it on your card for now. It's easier. Dad will pay you back later." Then the numbers started swelling. For 3 months straight, my phone buzzed with charge notifications. Flowers, music, transportation, extra fees. What wore down wasn't just my credit card. It was me. My father always used the same line. "Once the loan is refinanced, I'll pay you back." Or, "We're family. Don't keep score." That kind of hypocrisy turns you into the villain the moment you try to stop. Even the suit my father was proudly wearing while greeting guests was paid for with my card. When he smoothed the lapel to make it look perfect, my phone chimed with another charge. He didn't even look at his daughter. He just said lightly, "Hang in there for this last one." But the fatal blow came late one night. Standing outside the kitchen door, I froze when I heard Lila giggling with her friend. "Naomi will complain a little, that's all. She'd rather lose money than be accused of ruining my wedding. Just ignore her." Standing in the dark hallway with a stack of gold-inked menus in my hand, I suddenly felt like a donkey that had been drained of every last bit of strength and then turned into a joke by its own family. That night, I opened my laptop and started saving everything. Messages, invoices, emails, timestamps. For the first time, I saw clearly that if anything went wrong, I would be the scapegoat. My father had set the trap long ago. He insisted on taking control of the planning to reduce stress for the bride, but kept my name locked into the role of financial guarantor. He laughed with the event team and said, "Just put Naomi's name on it. She's an accountant. She's used to handling this stuff." Standing in the hallway today, staring at the charges on my phone, I finally saw how neatly he had dealt the cards. He kept the power. The debt carried my name. The ceremony doors swung open. I stepped into the preparation area to check the final expenses and saw my father standing among the vendors with a clipboard, directing people like he owned the place. He rearranged tables, cut off the planner mid-sentence, and reminded everyone to treat the groom's family with absolute respect. The way he spoke sounded like he was protecting the greater good, but my father's greater good was always built on someone else's sacrifice. Just as I moved toward the bridal room, he stepped directly into the doorway and blocked my path. His eyes were sharp and cold. "Lila needs quiet before the ceremony. Look at yourself. Wearing a black mourning outfit like that, are you trying to curse your sister's wedding? Get your debt-collecting face out into the service hallway and keep those trash papers away from the guests' eyes." I didn't move. I looked straight into my father's eyes. "You're wrong. I'm not wearing black to curse Lila. I'm wearing black to attend the funeral of the kindness I wasted on this family. You call these papers trash? Funny. That trash with my forged signature is paying for the suit you're wearing right now. You want me to disappear? Fine. But if I disappear, the money disappears with me. Let's see how long your precious family honor lasts when the band and the bar shut down minutes before the ceremony." My father's face froze for a second. Then he sneered, confident that I would never dare to follow through. He stepped closer and lowered his voice in a threatening whisper. "You won't do it, Naomi. You're too understanding for that. Now go back to where you belong." He jerked his chin toward the hallway again. "That's the right place for you. The main hall is for real family only. Look at yourself, dressed like you're attending a funeral and thinking you deserve to stand beside your sister. Do you want this whole family to lose face in front of the guests?" My mother stood near the gift table, smoothing the edge of the white cloth over and over. She didn't dare look directly at me. She just said softly, "We'll talk about it later." I had heard that sentence enough times to know what it really meant. Endure it, leave, and don't embarrass the family. At the end of the hallway, Lila stood among her bridesmaids and the photographer. She glanced over, saw my father blocking me, and then looked away. No one was surprised. This had all been arranged long before I walked in. I stood there, my face burning, my hand tightening around my phone. Just one sentence was enough to erase everything I had carried for them over the past few months. I reopened my inbox and scrolled down to the newest message from Megan. She must have been rushing through the last-minute expenses because she had forwarded the entire final confirmation file. Everything suddenly connected with brutal clarity. My father hadn't just pushed me out of the family seats. He was erasing me from the family while chaining me to the wedding's debts. He wanted me stripped of my place as family, but still forced to remain the one who paid. A neat move, and a cruel one? I turned and walked straight to the end of the hallway. The women's restroom there was empty. I locked myself in a stall, placed my phone on the stainless steel dispenser lid, and opened every file I had saved. If what I suspected was true, the glamorous wedding outside would turn into a cheap comedy about people who had just run out of money. My finger scrolled quickly through the emails. Megan's PDF sat at the top. I opened it, then pulled up an older folder with scanned documents I had once used to refinance my parents' loan. One quick glance was enough. There was no new signature, no verification call with me. Just an old sample of my signature, pasted onto a new financial authorization form, as if my name could be dragged anywhere simply because it had appeared on Hale family paperwork before. I stared at Megan's name on the screen. My finger hovered over the call button for 3 seconds. Those were the last 3 seconds I allowed myself to still be the understanding daughter of the Hale family. Then I pressed call. "Naomi, I thought you already knew," Megan said on the other end, lowering her voice with obvious concern. "Knew what? That I've just been turned into an unpaid guarantor?" I snapped. "Listen carefully. I never agreed to this, and I will never sign that pile of garbage." "Naomi, the system is flashing red," Megan shouted over the echo of ceremony music in the background. "The bar service is threatening to shut off and the sound system is about to be cut, and you just need to hit approve once, please." I looked at my name card beside the trash bag and gave a thin smile. "Megan, I'm not approving anything. My card is locked. Any charge under my name without a new confirmation from me is invalid. If your company wants to proceed, show me an original document with my legal signature. If you don't have it, stop. Goodbye." The call ended. A message from my father appeared immediately. "Stop making trouble. Just run the card and finish it. We'll settle it after the ceremony." After the ceremony, that same promise that had chained my neck for 10 years. My phone buzzed again. Megan sent an internal note from the event team. I scanned it quickly and froze at the red line. Mr. Hale requested that Naomi remain listed as the financial guarantor, but is not to be allowed access to the main hall under any circumstances. Reason? Inappropriate attire may affect visual presentation. Redirect subject to service hallway area. Silence settled over me. So in my father's eyes, I was nothing but a money printing machine that ruined the aesthetic. He wanted my wallet but was ashamed of my presence. They had calculated everything perfectly, isolate me in the shadows and use humiliation to force me to pay for their fake peace. But they forgot one thing. When an accountant decides to close the books, not a single cent moves. What chilled me most wasn't the forged signatures, it was the naked truth. My father knew me too well. He knew I had pride. He knew humiliation would make me pay. He used my own decency as the rope to tighten around my neck. Outside, staff radios crackled faintly through the door. A cart of glasses rolled down the hallway. The wheels echoed across the tile floor into the restroom stall. Everything was still running as if nothing was wrong, except me. I sat there staring at a single line of text that exposed the way my family had operated for years. My father didn't need to shout or threaten. All he had to do was quietly place my name on the bills and trust that I would swallow the humiliation myself. He didn't use force. He used a fake sense of obligation to turn me into a financial servant for this family. If you've ever felt like your kindness in your own family is treated as something people can use forever, hit like so I know you're here with Naomi. On the screen, the payment management app was still open. The final pending items under my name were clearly listed: the band, the upgraded sound system, and the additional decorations. I pressed cancel. Less than a minute later, the rehearsal music in the ceremony hall faltered and cut out halfway through a transition. A sound technician pressed a radio to his ear and spun toward the control board. The band members looked at each other. Outside, whispers started spreading through the rows of seats. The cancellation confirmation appeared on my screen. Then I locked my bank card. A dry little ding echoed in my palm. That was the first shot. The moment the music stopped, it wasn't sabotage. It was truth. When you stop being the money printing machine, the people who only loved your wallet reveal themselves faster than any script ever could. Sometimes letting the ship sink is the only way to save yourself. I didn't need to shout in the middle of the reception hall. I didn't need to fight anyone. One tap was enough for that entire wedding to understand one thing: the person paying had stopped playing. Right after that, I emailed the event team and Megan, clearly listing which charges I had already paid and which ones had been placed under my name without authorization. From that moment on, no service was allowed to charge my accounts again. To put the final period on this performance, I sent all the evidence of debt and forged signatures to Caleb, along with one final warning. Caleb, your wedding is built on deception. You should know who you're marrying before you walk down that aisle. I turned on the faucet and washed my hands like I had just touched garbage. In the mirror, the obedient daughter was gone. I wasn't swallowing this anger anymore. I would let them choke on it themselves. I looked at the name card lying beside the trash bag, picked it up, folded it in half, and slipped it into my wallet. They wanted me to sit next to the trash. Fine. But from now on, I decide what gets thrown away. As I passed the kitchen door, the image of that apartment brochure from when I was 23 flashed back into my mind. The day my father folded it and shoved it into a drawer as if my dream were just something to deal with later. Today, it was my turn to fold up their lives. While the event staff rushed toward the control board, I clutched the file and turned into the hallway on the right, where the groom's waiting room door was cracked open. Caleb had just turned around when the stack of papers landed on the coffee table, right between him and his parents. I slid the authorization form with my old signature attached on top and looked him straight in the eye. "Here's your wedding gift. A list of the debts Lila and my father secretly signed in my name." The whole room went still. I tapped the edge of the file lightly with my fingertip. "Read it, then decide for yourself whether you want to walk out there and marry a bride or walk straight into financial fraud. If this isn't cleared up right now, the rest of the ceremony stops here." Caleb flipped through a few pages quickly, then froze at the liability confirmation. His jaw tightened. "For the past few weeks, I knew something felt off," he said, his voice dropping low. "Every time I asked about the costs, Lila said you were handling it, but I never thought handling it meant this." He pulled out his phone, opened a text from the night before, and held it out for me to see. I kept it because it didn't sit right with me. Now it makes perfect sense. On the screen was a message from Lila. "Naomi will be upset, but she won't dare ruin the wedding. We'll deal with it after." I handed the phone back to Caleb. A bitter, ridiculous feeling rose in my throat. Lila hadn't set this trap herself the way my father did. But she knew everything. She knew my name was being kept on that pile of debt. She knew it would hurt me. She knew it would humiliate me. And she still chose silence so her wedding day could stay beautiful. She believed that as long as she put on a wedding dress, I would do what I always did. Hold back, carry it, swallow it. Caleb looked at me, his jaw still tight. "Thank you for bringing this to me," he said quietly. I turned and walked out, but the second I disappeared past the groom's room door, a rough hand yanked me backward. My father grabbed my arm hard and dragged me into the flower storage area behind the partition. The thick smell of lilies mixed with packing tape burned in the air, sharp and suffocating. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he growled, his face red with rage. "You're so jealous of your sister, you've lost your mind. Is that it? You're trying to destroy her wedding just because you don't have what she has?" The words came out of him so smoothly they sent a chill down my spine. So this had been his script all along. The second I refused to keep being the family cash cow, he was ready to turn me into the bitter, jealous, cruel older sister. I looked at him, then answered slowly, clearly, one word at a time. "I'm not interested in ruining this wedding. I'm just giving back what was always yours to carry, responsibility." I pulled the invoice for the suit he was wearing and the reception hall inside from the file. In front of my father's stunned face, I lifted the scissors. Snip! Snip! Torn pieces of paper fluttered down over the pile of lilies, reeking of fake money and fake pride. "Today, the Hale family's fake honor can pay its own damn bill." His face went stiff, then drained pale, like he'd just been slapped across the face. At that exact moment, Lila's shrill voice rang out from the doorway, slicing through the thick air of lilies and lies. She stood there holding up part of her dress, mascara starting to smear at the corners of her eyes. But that pretty mouth of hers opened not to ask, "Are you okay?" and not to stop our father. "I just thought, this time you'd be generous with me again, like always." I looked at my sister. Then I looked at my father. Nothing exploded. It was just that from that moment on, I no longer felt like I stood on the same side as either of them. The silence shattered when Megan rushed in. Her face was pale, her voice sharp with pressure from the vendors. "Everyone into the private room. Right, now." The room behind the main hall was small, closed in, and hot. Outside, the guests had nearly filled every seat, the music was still playing softly, and conversation drifted through the half-closed door. That normal atmosphere only made everything inside the room feel more suffocating. The venue manager dropped a stack of papers onto the table, his voice flat and cold. The system automatically cut the sound and the band because the card was locked. If the guarantor does not confirm the signature immediately, we will have to cancel the main hall and the bar service. My father curled his lip into a thin, smug smile. "Oh, come on, she's just on her period and being overly emotional. Family matters should stay private. Just keep it running. I'll guarantee it." Without saying a word, I shoved my phone, the screen lit up with clear proof of the fraud, right into the middle of the table. With a hard clack, I set the locked bank card on top like a final period. Caleb stared at the screen for 1 second, then suddenly slammed the file shut. The crack of paper against wood rang out dry and sharp, and the whole room fell dead silent. I'm only asking once. Caleb turned to Lila, his voice low, clipped and cold. Did you know Naomi never signed this new authorization form? I leaned lightly against the edge of the table, my eyes still fixed on Lila's face. You don't need to dance around it, Caleb. If that signature were real, I wouldn't have been shoved into a seat next to a trash bag today. And if it's fake, then this wedding is starting with fraud. Lila didn't lift her head. She just gripped her bouquet tighter. The sound of crushed white lily petals was dry, flimsy, and cheap, just like the family bond she had just sold out. I'm asking you, Caleb cut in, stressing every word. Did you know or not? The whole room stopped breathing. Lila's lips trembled. She still couldn't look anyone in the eye. Then, very softly, like even she knew how dirty the answer was, I just thought, we'd deal with it after the ceremony. Caleb stood still for exactly one beat. Just one, but it was enough for me to watch something in his eyes go dark. So you knew. My mother sank into the chair against the wall, both hands clutching each other tightly. She cried, but she didn't step in. For the first time that whole day, she didn't place herself between my father and the truth. I opened my wallet, pulled out the crumpled name card, and calmly set it right beside the debt authorization form. The two pieces of paper lay there together, creating a ridiculous contrast. How thoughtful of you, Dad, I said, my voice calm enough to be terrifying. On Lila's big day, you prepared exactly two things for me: a bottom-tier seat next to a trash bag and a debt hanging over my head. The whole room went so quiet I could hear Caleb breathing heavily. My father spun toward me, his face red with humiliation, still trying to yell his way out of it. You're blowing this way out of proportion. It's a tiny problem, and you're tearing it open like it's some huge scandal. I didn't answer right away. I simply opened my wallet, pulled out a folded sheet of blank paper and a pen, and dropped them hard on the table in front of him. The whole room froze. You do not get to yell at me here, I said, my voice calm and cold. Now there are only two choices. One, you sign this and confirm that all of this debt is yours and that I never approved that authorization form. Two, I write up a formal statement right here, send it to my lawyer, send it to the bank, and let them handle the rest. The venue manager coldly shook his head, gathered the stack of papers, and looked at my father like he was staring at a criminal. I pushed the pen a little closer to him. Pick one, sign it, or I make the call. Caleb still stood there, staring at the pile of invoices on the table. His jaw was so tight his cheekbones stood out. When he finally spoke, his voice dropped lower, colder than the sound of the air conditioner hissing overhead. What scares me isn't the money. Lila jerked her head up, her face pale, mascara smeared. Caleb, it's that you knew it was wrong, he cut in. You knew your sister never agreed to this. You knew her name was being kept on this debt. And you still stayed silent just so your wedding could start looking perfect. Lila reached for him in panic. Caleb, don't do this. It's just a misunderstanding. Caleb stepped back half a step, avoiding her hand. His eyes flicked over my bent name card, then landed on the bouquet, crushed in Lila's hands. No, this is not a misunderstanding. He spoke slowly, every word clear. Someone who can stand there in a wedding dress, watch her own sister be shoved next to a trash bag, and still let her carry the debt for her big day, is not someone I can marry. Then he turned to the venue manager, his voice calm enough to freeze the room. Cancel the wedding, right now. Lila burst into tears, as if only then had she realized nothing could still be saved. How could you do this to me? Are you so jealous of me that you wore funeral clothes here just to ruin my wedding? I stepped closer. My black dress cast a long shadow, covering the white lace at the hem of her gown. I threw the file with the forged signature onto the table with a hard, dry clack. Stop acting, Lila. This black dress was my choice. The $20,000 debt was not. I looked straight into her mascara-streaked eyes. I'm not ruining your wedding. I'm just refusing to keep being the back you and Dad climb onto. That was the moment everything truly fell apart. Not with screaming, not with some loud, dramatic blow-up, but because the last person they still believed would grit her teeth and keep carrying them, me, had stepped completely out of that machine, and the last person they thought would still walk forward blindly, Caleb, had stopped too. My father stared at the file on the table like it had just slapped him across the face. Red crept slowly from his neck up to his cheeks. All day long, he had managed to keep that calm voice of a man in control, a man arranging everyone and everything exactly the way he wanted. Not anymore. And I just stood there. I didn't move in to comfort anyone. I didn't step in to soften the moment. I didn't reach out to patch over one more crack in this family. About 15 minutes later, the door opened. Outside, the rows of seats were full. The ceremony still hadn't started. The music had been turned down so low it sounded like someone was trying to preserve the last trace of normalcy in a day that had been broken from the start. I looked out into the main hall, then back at my father. From that moment on, whether the wedding continued or not, he had already lost the thing that had kept him standing for years. The right to tell the story his way. That wedding never happened. Megan stepped out in front of the hall, her voice tight but still trying to sound professional, and announced that the ceremony had to be postponed because of internal issues. Whispering immediately rose through the rows like wind moving through dry leaves. But this time, I didn't stay behind to clean up the mess. I left that wrecked wedding before the guests even had time to stand up. My father chased me out to the parking lot, the expensive suit on his body already wrinkled, his voice strained with panic. "Naomi, wait! Listen to me. The flower car is still being held. Just pay the last charge. We'll deal with everything else when we get home." Looking at his hand gripping my wrist, I felt more amused than hurt. After everything that had happened, he still believed that if I just opened my wallet, everything would slide back into the same old pattern. I pulled his hand off me, opened my wallet, took out a $1 bill from the middle compartment and shoved it straight into the breast pocket of the suit my money had bought him. "This is the last thing I will ever pay for in this family," I said. "Keep it. Buy yourself whatever little dignity you have left." My father stood there frozen. With my hand on the car door, I paused for exactly 1 second, then said the rest without turning around. "The Naomi Hale you used for years died at this wedding." The car door slammed shut. An upbeat song came on. The car rolled away from Willow and Stone with no tears, no looking back, and no way back. At the start of the next week, I wasn't sitting around crying. I was sitting in a lawyer's office. My request was simple. Remove my name from the Hale family's trash heap. I wanted my records clean, and I wanted every dollar I had poured into that bottomless hole clearly separated and accounted for. Then came days of emails and cold confirmations. The event company, the florist, every vendor sent written notices. "All services under Naomi's name have been terminated." I read that line over and over, slowly, like I was savoring the taste of freedom for the first time after 10 years of being a slave to being understanding. Caleb moved out the following week. What happened between him and Lila didn't explode into some loud public drama. It just quietly ended. Sometimes the silence of a man who has completely run out of trust hurts more than 10,000 screams. In the end, my father was forced to sign the financial settlement agreement. It clearly stated which debts were his and which ones I had only covered temporarily. I looked at his signature at the bottom of the page and felt no satisfaction, just something strange. For the first time in that family, my father's signature sat exactly where it belonged, under the responsibility he was finally forced to carry. I moved into a small apartment in South Nashville. It wasn't as grand as the dream home I had wanted at 23, but at least it was completely mine. A few weeks later, my mother sent me a box of old belongings. On top was that cream-colored apartment brochure from years ago, the one my father had shoved into a drawer to deal with later. My mother left only one short note. "I should have given this dream back to you sooner." Justice didn't give me back 10 years of youth, but it did stop the family machine that had ground down my self-respect every single day. Right now on my kitchen table, the card with the name Naomi Hale still lies there. It's no longer thrown next to a stinking trash bag. Now it sits beside the keys to my new apartment. That black dress still hangs in my closet, a reminder. Never let anyone bury your light just so they can brighten their own stage. For the first time in 10 years, the Nashville sky looked that blue to me. Naomi lost a family, but she found herself again. Don't be afraid of being pushed next to the trash bag, because sometimes that's the only place where you can clearly see what's gold and what's actually garbage. Tonight, sleep well because you don't owe anybody anything except yourself. What drains us most is sometimes not money, but being kept in the wrong place for too long. The first step to finding yourself again can be as simple as this. Stop and refuse to carry what was never yours. If this story touched the pain you've been hiding, leave a comment so we know we're not alone. Don't forget to share it if you know someone else who needs a place to stop. I'm Stella. Thank you for staying with me until this moment. Don't forget to like and subscribe so we can keep telling more journeys of awakening together. Your being here means more than you think.